welcome to the So What What's Next podcast. Today I'm actually joined by one of my favorite guys. We like to argue and get into it every now and then, but today we'll keep it as civil as we can. But we're
Right.
joined by Tony Wiggins, man, from the Locked On Jaguars, and I think you also do a lot of work on Locked On NFL Network.
That's right. Locked on NFL.
And I thought it'd be a good idea to get him in and talk some NFL football. Something I don't know a whole lot about, so I decided to get a professional on here, man.
All right. I'll be that. I'll be that today.
How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. What about y'all?
Man, you know me, I'm fighting a little 4-year-old today, as usual. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I don't know if Nikki will be in. If she do come in, I'll let her, join in and have ask a few questions and whatnot, man.
Cool.
But we'll take it slow and easy. But
Well, you ain't gonna
yeah,
let Nikki do nothing. Nikki do what she want to do. You ain't gonna
yeah.
let her get in now.
You know what?
If she want to come in, she's coming in. She don't
that's
need no
a
permission slip.
that's a great damn point, Wig. I'm glad you changed that. I'm glad you fixed that vocabulary for me. I apologize for that. But this draft is a fascinating draft because I think they got a lot of overhyped quarterbacks going on right now, and I think a lot of times they use quarterbacks for smoke screens. To be honest with you, what is your initial thoughts of this particular draft, especially when you compare it to the last 2 or 3 years?
Well, compared to last year, I think this draft is probably stronger. And I know I might be in the minority when it comes to that, but if Will Anderson would have came out last year, he would have been the first pick. Period.
Right.
And and unless they would have been so in love with Trey, well, he would have been favored to be the first pick. Put it that way. But I don't know if the quarterbacks are being overrated as much as it is that position is so important that teams are willing, because of the rookie scale, to take a chance on a quarterback. And if they miss, they miss. You've seen it in New York. They'll dump that thing. They'll get rid of that thing after 2 years. They don't care.
Yeah.
They'll move on. And so this is not as depth. I did not know you can drink on your podcast. That is.
Yeah, Wig. I don't have no sponsors, so I can sit up here and really do what I want to do.
You know what? I'm actually hiding my cup. So
yeah, I can do what I want to do here.
You lucky I ain't chewing one of them things, because I got to drive to the airport, and I cannot drive when I get. No, I'll be stuck messing around with that stuff. I'm telling you. So, we took some other pain meds though, so we can sit up in this chair long enough to do the show today. But the quarterbacks, it's just the position is so important for the advancement of your team. You got a bad quarterback, you can't see what else you got.
Yeah.
So sometimes your team isn't horrible. If your quarterback is spotty, then it's very difficult to evaluate the rest of your roster, because you actually need to know who can actually raise their level of play once the level of play is raised. And that's why so many people doubted Zay Jones. And you get him here with an elite quarterback, and he had a career year. So many people doubted Evan Ingram, and you get him in Jacksonville with an elite quarterback, and they look totally different. Who'd have thought Evan Ingram would have gone a year without being claimed after being a high second-round pick to a dude plays 1 year in Jacksonville, and now he has a franchise tag?
Yeah, absolutely. That is interesting. I think the Will Anderson thing, like we talk about the top of the draft with Houston. I think it's the Houston, right? And the Panthers in Houston. And I told him I just can't see Houston taking a quarterback with that pick. I mean, if Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson is sitting there, I just can't see. Just knowing the fabric of the coach and that GM, it just doesn't. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think Will Anderson is a better fit as a stand-up outside linebacker in a 3-4.
Right.
I think he can play. He can play with his hand on the ground, because I think your question is, there's a chance for you to get Nick Bosa. Well, that's not going to happen in this draft. There's no Nick Bosa. I like Tyree. He's a pretty good player from what I've seen on the film and tape, and he's big, long, and explosive. But we talk about matching body types. Neither one of those actually fit what DeMeco wants to do. And if he wants to do what he's been doing now, doesn't mean that they can't play those positions. But I think Tyree would be better suited as a big end in a 4-3. And if he's in a 3-4, I think he also needs to be a defensive end, because I think his body's going to grow. Now, Trayvon is 6'5". This other kid we talking about 6'6", almost 6'7". So I just think you have to make sure that whoever you draft, you put them in the right situation from a developmental standpoint, and that there's some stability in the franchise. Because you get drafted and then a coach changes, and the staff changes. Now the philosophy changes. Now you got to wonder, do you fit? Quincy Williams is a perfect example. Didn't fit what they were doing here in Jacksonville. Now he's a tackling machine up with the Jets.
Right.
Fit very well up there. So that's the thing about having organizations that are constantly in flux. You hear people talk about fitting in and characteristics and football character, where you don't even have a chance to really get any consistency in that area because you're changing around management so much.
So let me ask you this question, Dan. Who do you think are the top 5 players in this draft, regardless of position?
That's a good question. I'll take the 2 quarterbacks. I'll take Bryce, CJ Stroud, in no particular order. CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. For me, that's 3. Okay, so for me, I would probably say, without taking a hard look at it, JSN, Jackson Smith and Njigba. And that doesn't mean that he needs to go based on positional value that high. But for me, and I probably will go Devin Witherspoon after that. I think he's electric, man.
Wow. So you'll take all those guys over Jalen Carter?
Yeah, and because the one thing you can't coach is lazy, and whether or not that's true, it would depend on what the people I had around me were telling him. But you see it and hear it. He got amazing talent, man.
Right.
But there seems to be a little bit of immaturity there too. I give him a look. I give him a little. I give him a little bit of a break though. I mean, if you show up at the combine in shape, at least from a weight perspective, that to me is your job interview, right? If you show up at the combine in shape, you go to your personal workout, a month later, and you're 14 pounds heavy. Look, I can eat a cheeseburger and gain 14 pounds. So, I know how that goes a little bit, but I'm wondering if the difference is between the time he was preparing for the combine and the time that he was preparing for his workout. He left the combine because he had an arrest warrant.
Right.
And now the skepticism and all of the speculation from everyone about whether or not he had anything to do with his friends with an S, death, teammate and friends. So now you got that hanging over the kid. You think he was probably working out, or was he probably preoccupied with the stress that came along with the fact that, okay, I've already had this grieving process, but now that the whole world knows what they know, now people are saying that I probably had something to do with it, and that hasn't been the case. Nobody said anything like that. And me and you were talking about it, I think, offline. People just assume folks were racing. How many times have been in multiple cars and one person speeding and you're speeding? You're not racing. Y'all might just be trying to get to where you're going. Yeah. So I think that, people think that he's some dude that's going to be drag racing in cars and all of this stuff. But, we have to take into consideration the one-on-one interview process and then have, all of that information. But it's not going to be shared information at this point because nobody wants anybody else to have a leg up on them on what they're going to draft or who they're going to pick. So I don't want you, if we knew what the Jaguars were thinking about all of these players, then the bottom line would mean that they wouldn't be doing their job, because part of this is need to know and operation security, because it's the element of surprise about draft night. So I like Jalen Carter. I don't get all into the Aaron Donald stuff. And somebody was saying he's Chris Jones, and I've been disputing that all year.
Right.
I said no, he's not Chris Jones, but with his body type, he is more like the Simmons kid in Tennessee. Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons.
Because he's 304 now. He's young. I think eventually he plays at 320. And I think he does okay in the NFL. But I hope he goes to the right place with the right coach, with the right structure, and he can put all of this nonsense to bed.
Yeah, somebody compare him to his situation to Albert Haynesworth, because I guess Albert Haynesworth has certain red flags, similar red flags like that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm a little bit of a mercenary wig. You know this about me.
Right.
If you're going to give me 5 years of Albert Haynesworth, I'll probably take that with a top 10 pick.
Yeah, well, the problem is people are looking at the Albert Haynesworth situation. People from down south are looking at the Albert Haynesworth from Tennessee. I even saw Jacquez Green say Albert Haynesworth was an all-pro, and Albert Haynesworth got $100 million contract. Now, someone who grew up a fan of the football team in Washington that goes by the name the Commanders now will tell you that they're the ones that gave him the $100 million.
Right.
And he never lived up to it once he got it. So,
right.
There's two different things. You want to talk about how much money he made and his all-pro that happened before he got the money. But then you want to talk about the team that actually gave him the money. And then he refused to play nose tackle when they. See, that's what I'm talking about. The coach that when they signed him, they hadn't hired Mike Shanahan to be the coach.
Right.
He told the GM, "I'm a 3 technique. I'm not playing nose guard." They hire Shanahan. Shanahan comes in. He switches to a 3-4 and says, "You're playing nose guard." He didn't. He didn't want to do it. He was out of shape. The very first practice, he failed the conditioning run. This is your $100 million man. This is the dude you gave all this money to.
Right.
And he was constantly in and out of the roster, constantly blowing wind, going in the game, not doing what he was supposed to do, not handling it. He was trying to go rush the passer, and they told him, "Nope, we want you to play nose guard. We want you to take up blockers." Now, that's dumb on their part to be paying the dude that much money to do that when he can do something else. But you don't get to pick and choose what it is you want to do once you're under contract. You know that. So it was a disaster. And then he had some stuff going off the field with the police and something with some woman, and then he kind of made a comment about his preference to date who he wants to, and you said that in that city, so you pissed off 75% of the entire people up in that area. They call it Chocolate City for a reason, but it's just that it didn't go well. So anybody that's poo-pooing that Albert Haynesworth comparison based on the all-pro and the $100 million contract, I don't think they're looking at it completely, because there are a lot of people that'll tell you he was supposed to be the next Reggie White, and it did not materialize, and it was all because of him.
Right. So I'm gonna jump back to these quarterbacks real quick. Okay, my opinion is I don't think none of these guys are special. I don't think none of them are. Hell, I don't think none of them are Drake May or Caleb Williams. I don't think none of them are Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert or any of these guys. And a lot of them actually scare me more. Like, they can have more red flags to me than any other draft. But then again, I always kind of come back to this thing where I thought Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III and Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, I thought these guys were going to have 10-year careers. So what is your thought process on these quarterbacks? What do you think about them?
All right, so I'm gonna look up a word, and I'm looking it up right now so I can be exact. I tell people this all the time. So the word I'm gonna look up is prospect.
Right.
I'm gonna look up the word prospect, and I'm gonna give you the first two definitions of prospect that pops up on my computer. The first one says the possibility or likelihood of some future event occurring. The second one is a person regarded as likely to succeed or as a potential customer, client, or whatever. So it says likely. When you look, you think about what likely means, or possibility of some future event occurring. This is why they call them prospects instead of players when they're being drafted. And that's because it's a future thing. It's not about winning draft night. It's not about winning rookie of the year. It's the likelihood that when you draft somebody, number one, that hopefully you re-sign them and they play for your organization for a decade or maybe even 12 years, right? So if they're worth it. So the likelihood that these guys are going to survive or be good for Bryce Young, it has nothing to do with his IQ, nothing to do with his ability to throw the ball. He can make every single throw. He does everything correctly, except the thing that he can't control. And he can't be taller and he can't be bigger.
Right.
He can gain weight or whatever, but he can't grow any. So the likelihood.
Do you think that's a fair? Because people making it seem like it's not fair. I think it's fair, but do you think it's fair that is a knock on him?
No, it's not a knock. It is. I don't think it's about fair or unfair. I think when you look at the word prospect and the definition of it,
right?
Little guys like that don't make. Look at all the quarterbacks; they're all 6'3" or bigger, right? So I mean, but it doesn't mean that something that's an outlier can't happen. So that's why you're hesitant to use the number one overall pick on a player that has any box that's not checked. And that is a big, big box, right? It's not a bigger box, though. I think Levis has a bigger question mark because he fits all the criteria physically. But at this point, if you hadn't learned to point your feet to where you throw the ball, at this point, and you've been a quarterback your whole life.
Right.
You're still not turning your feet to where you throw the ball. That just means that you Derek Carr. And speaking, Derek Carr just signed a $100 million contract. As a matter of fact, this is his second one.
Right.
So if we want to look at it like that,
right.
Fine. If we want to keep talking about how many contracts a guy had, because that's like an irrelevant point. But when you're picking number one, you're not picking number one to get Derek Carr. You're not picking number one to get Kirk Cousins. You are hoping to get a player that's much better than that. CJ Stroud, as far as ball placement, eye manipulation, is perfect. They don't like CJ Stroud because he don't run. And there've been a lot of quarterbacks that don't run. They just haven't been black. And so when you really want to think about it, he's being punished for being a black quarterback that don't have no getaway car. So
let me ask you this question.
As far as ball placement and I don't hold it against CJ Stroud because he had a bunch of NFL guys around him on the line and at the skill positions and at running back next year. No, I don't hold it. You know what it shows me? It shows me that he belongs. Because when you surround him with those type people, he was still the alpha dog and he was still the one performing. So there's sometimes you can surround the guy with those type people and they stick out like a sore thumb because it's like one of these people does not belong. Well, he belongs. You can't. So in the NFL, everybody was an All-American at some point, either in high school or college. Everybody's good in the NFL, right? So I've seen a guy operate when everybody's being good and he was able to play the offense, manipulate, throw the ball in different spots where everybody got their shine. And those alpha dogs allowed him to lead them. Therefore, that shows me that he can handle that situation. So I like him a lot. I really, really do. To me, in my opinion, he's the number one.
I like CJ Stroud a lot. I did listen to a lot of like Ohio State podcasts last year. I think it was probably about mid-year, about 4 games into last year. And they kept, and this is the thing I hate. I hate this word because I hate it when it comes up with a quarterback because that is a defining trait. I always say, if you give me a hard-working quarterback and you give me a mentally tough quarterback, it seems like that kind of can carry the rest of the tools if those quarterbacks are built that way. And if they don't have either one of them, they just have no shot in the NFL. And they kept kind of bringing up his toughness, like he has to be coached a certain kind of way and he has to be dealt with a certain kind of way. And, so that does kind of, that's one thing about him that if it's true, this is use Ohio State podcast saying this stuff. If it's true, that's something that does bother me. Because that's one thing I can look at now and say, what I didn't see with Jalen Hurts and what I didn't see with Josh Allen was they was going to work their asses off and they are mentally tough. So it's like, how do you feel about that? If that's a knock on them.
Well, it kind of bothers me that's what people are saying.
They're not saying it now. They're not saying it now. I was just saying this is something I heard when I was listening to early last year.
Okay, last year. So let me tell you something. He was there. He wasn't playing yet. They had another hot shot named Ewers from Texas. He beat him out.
Right.
That's mental toughness.
Right.
He didn't quit. He didn't quit because the new dude came. The new dude showed up, right?
Right.
He didn't quit. And then he gets into the game against the mighty Georgia Bulldogs where you're not supposed to be able to do this and you're not supposed to be able to do that. And he did it. He ran. I think if Marvin Harrison, and I know I'm going to piss some people off, if Marvin Harrison doesn't get hurt, they win it.
Yeah.
If Harrison doesn't get hurt or JSN plays, Ohio State beats Georgia. They could have beat him anyway if the dude made the field goal.
Right.
So my thing is, he is he's a real good player. And this time of year, people always bring up all of that mental hogwash. You know what I'm saying? I'll tell you what, go draft Stetson Bennett then if you want somebody who got it all together. Go draft Stetson Bennett, dude old enough to be, my oldest child almost. So I'm just saying it's almost like I said, you get angry when guys don't run, you get angry when guys run too much.
Right,
so
right.
It just that's why the draft is so fun because it only takes one person to like you.
Right.
And think about this. How many bad things did people say about Jalen Hurts?
Man, it was a lot. And I was one of them. I was
right.
Like, man, I just don't see it.
So I always saw the leadership, but the thing is, anybody that tells me that they saw him playing the way he played last year, they'll lie because he didn't, and he grew into it, and he was coached well.
Right.
See, this is just a thing where people have to do their job.
Yeah.
You have to do your job. I'll never forget this. I will never forget. I had a longtime NFL player in the barbershop, and I had a scout. Matter of fact, my buddy that he used to scout in the NFL. Now he's in Power 5.
Right.
And he was sitting there waiting. I didn't even introduce him because I just didn't want to. So we were talking about a high school prospect, and the guy said he was a 5-star corner that was from Jacksonville. He said he can't play off. All he does is play man. And I looked at my scout buddy and I saw him look down and just shake his head. So when he left, he sat in my chair and said, I can't stand when people do that. And I said, what? He said, he's 17, man. Mm-hmm. Teach him. When you want him to come ready, you want him to come ready to play. Now, to the other dude credit, the dude went to college and he's been in the NFL for like 5 years. He still can't play off. So the thing is because nobody that plays that way drafts him. So a team that's playing press man, that's what they want. So they grab him every time. So he has a niche. And he has somebody that likes what he does,
right?
And that so he's going to fit in. Just like if you're a weak side linebacker, 9 times out of 10, if you can't play the mic, you're not going to play in a 3-4,
right?
Quincy Absolutely. Williams. It doesn't mean it's a knock on you, but what it means is you have to identify. And this is the way the Shanahans have been with running backs and offensive linemen. People say running backs don't matter. Shanahan can find anybody. No, he don't. Shanahan don't just find a guy. They know exactly who can play in their system and who can't.
Yeah, dude, they drafted 2 or 3 running backs. They've went out and traded for a running back. Like he wants a special certain type of guy. He
wants a certain type of guy, right. But if a guy is special and he's that certain type of guy, then that's double. So right. So now I can get a certain type of guy to run this system, but if I get a certain type of guy who's also great, like McCaffrey, so it just ratchets everything up. So I think sometimes we look at the scouting and drafting and rating players. We look at it from a real cookie cutter perspective and think that we just have, it's not Oreo. It's not either the cream is white. And the cookies. No, it's not like that. You know what it is? It's a swirl. It's this.
Right.
And we're not looking at it like that. And people just have to do their job, man. They got to do their job. Coaches have to coach.
And I will say, for the most part, NFL, if you ask me, I think over the last 10, maybe 15 years, NFL teams has gotten better with drafting players and selecting players, because you just don't have a bunch of flameouts like you used to back in the early 90s, in my opinion. It seems like they have more information, they have better idea of the systems. You rarely see a Jamarcus Russell. You know, it was some offensive linemen, Kajana Carter. It was some running backs back in the day. I mean, guys that was going
Carter got hurt. Carter had a catastrophic knee injury. So him and Charles Rogers, those people don't count.
Right.
Injuries isn't failure. Injuries is just a casualty of the job.
Yeah. But it was some offensive linemen that was drafted back then that was like number 1, number 2.
Robert Gallery and
and these guys couldn't play a lick. So I think they get it. I think for the most part, these teams get it right more than people want to get them credit for. That they do get them wrong. But I think they get it right for the most part. You don't see a bunch of flameouts anymore. But it is tough, man. It is tough to let them play. And I told somebody the other day, I say, I wouldn't want that job. I wouldn't want that job because, I mean, it's a lot going on right there.
I would want the job if we could structure our staff the way Kansas City structures their staff. And I brag about that a lot. And I tell people
Kansas City and Philly,
and it's pretty much the same thing. But Kansas City way more than anybody else. If anybody don't believe me, go look up the Kansas City staff. Look at their back office and count how many people are under the owner or between the owner and Andy Reid. It's unbelievable how many player personnel, vice presidents they have. And look at their coaching staff. They got like 25 dudes on their staff, man. So everybody can't afford to do that. But when you do that, they know the type. They know who they want, right? They know what it is that they want. So I think when we get back to that whole cookie cutter deal and that whole black or white issue, I think when people see players flame out, they automatically assume, okay, he got the money and he was lazy and he just wasn't good enough. It was a bad evaluation, like somebody didn't do their job. No, sometimes, this is a news flash for you, right? This is a contact sport. What do they say in boxing? All that look good until you get hit.
Right.
In the NFL, you do not know how a guy is going to react. No more than you know when a guy leaves high school and he goes to Alabama, and then you see him in the transfer portal 2 years later. Right. How are you going to respond when you get into that room and for the first time in your life, somebody hits you harder or punch you harder or run away from you faster than you've ever seen? What do you do? And then what kind of structure does that organization have to be able to cultivate that out of him? That's why I say when people talk about you got to coach him a certain way. You know what? That's fine. That's
Right.
fine that everybody isn't coached the same because everybody ain't yoked the same, right?
Right. Right.
So, I was the kid that you could yell at me all day. I ain't gonna go ahead, holler. I don't care. Even in the military, yell at me. I wouldn't laugh at them and it
Right.
would piss me off. But guess what? It will motivate the hell out of me. And I learned something from those days. And I'll tell you what it is. You can't think you're gonna do everything right. And this goes to my point. I tried to do everything right. They still caught up with me and they fired me from this little job I had while we were in training, right?
Right.
I later on learned something. You can't do everything right. They will manufacture your demise. And they manufacture your demise because they want to see how you respond to it. That's it.
Right.
And in this day and age, everything is on social media. People are real sensitive. But the bottom line is they manufacture stress because Sundays are stressful as hell.
Right. Yeah.
So they
Absolutely.
want to know what they got. Do I got a
Right.
dog? How's he gonna respond? You know what I'm saying? What is his temperament?
Right.
And they can't manufacture that, in certain situations, but they try hard and they really try to break you. And this is somebody told me about basketball. The coach will try to break you. As a matter of fact, it was Kentucky.
Mhm.
The coach will try to break you, hoping you don't break.
Right.
But he's gonna try to break you. So the thing is that's what it's all about, man. It's about being able to play under pressure and being able to rise to the occasion. And you got to see what a dude's made of before you send him out there knowing he ain't ready.
Okay. Okay. That's true. That's true. Let me ask you this question. We Florida State fans. What do you
Yeah.
think about Jamie Robinson?
I think Jamie's a hard worker. I think Jamie's gonna get picked right where he should, which is probably in the 4th round. He's gonna probably have to bust his chops on special teams unless he goes to a real good team. And if he goes to a real good team that absolutely needs, like if he goes to Pittsburgh, right, that are good, Minkah Fitzpatrick, those guys are good in that area, but it's a system they understand.
Mhm.
And if he's your nickel or your dime safety,
Mhm.
Jamie Robinson will be fine. You put Jamie Robinson in a situation where he has to do what Andre Cisco had to do when he got here, I think you're going to struggle because I don't think his speed and I don't think his ball. I go back to the last game at Florida the year before last when he got beat down the sideline by that tight end and the dude was just catching the ball, dunking on him. That's the kind of stuff that's going to happen in the NFL. I think he has to be put in the right system, put in the box. I can see him being a Baltimore Raven.
Right.
I can see him where they have a very specific role for him, and I can see him playing for 7 or 8 years. But he ain't LaMarcus Joyner, and I don't want people to think that because that's not what he is.
Yeah.
But he's a very good, hard-nosed player that has some limitations in terms of his ability to get from point A to point B. That doesn't mean he can't play. He's a
Right.
hard hitter. The way he plays, he should be Cam Chancellor size, and he's not.
Right.
So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for him. But I think he's going to play a long time in the league. I think he'll start it out on special teams, and I think his work ethic and his IQ is going to get him over for a long time.
Yeah, I think even though we watched LaMarcus Joyner here for 4 years, I think people still really underrate just how good LaMarcus Joyner was at Florida State. I mean, that's a different dude, man. He was different. I remember when they did the what is it called? The camp thing they do on HBO, Hard Knocks.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach is just trying to get him back in camp because he's about to retire. He's about to leave football. And they were like, man, the defense only work of LaMarcus Joyner here. We got to get him back. We got to get him back. I don't think people understand just how special he is, how special he was, or still is actually.
Yeah.
Let's get into a quick Jag talk then. Let me go and get this Jag talk the last 15, 20 minutes because I got a rant. I'll listen to all your podcasts about the Jaguars. You're probably the only source I trust when it comes to Jaguar conversation.
That makes you every day. That's what we call y'all.
Yeah. I'm every day. I'm every day.
Right.
I'm in there. I'm locked in.
Right.
I don't go on YouTube because I don't want to look at your face all the time. You know what I'm saying?
That's all right.
But I got you on Apple.
And I don't want you sitting there looking at me. Don't let me find out you going there looking at me all the time.
All right.
We're going to have some problems, right?
So what is the biggest need right now for the Jaguars? And what do you think they need to do? And then what do you think they're going to do?
I listen to the coaches. I listen to them when they talk. They haven't shown to be people that give you and blow smoke screens. And they don't look like they're throwing stuff out there just to try to confuse people. So when Doug was asked what the biggest need is, he said pass rush. Improve pass rush. But there's a quandary that comes along with that. And here's the quandary. They got 3 number 1 picks not number one overall, but first round draft picks at edge with Chason, with Josh Allen, and of course Trayvon Walker. How many times you gonna pick a first rounder as an edge rusher?
Right.
And see, the problem with that is outside of Caleb, the fans got mad at me. I did a mock. We did a mock, a locked on mock, and I traded Josh. I traded Josh. I went from 24 to 15, and I sent him Josh Allen too, and I took Lucas Van Ness, who's going to be a top 12 pick, right?
Right.
And then under the assumption that I think they're going to play more full-man fronts. And then to make the deal sweet, I did a pick swap. I traded 88 for the 45th pick. So it turns out that that's the equivalent. I gave up Josh Allen for 2 twos. I got 2 twos for him, that 2 late second-round picks. And I was able to move up. So the reason I did that is because Josh is on a 5th-year option. And based on what they just did with Juwan Taylor, they probably ain't going to give him the money he wants. And if he takes a discount, that means he even admits he's not as good as he thinks he is. Because anybody who thinks they're good ain't going to take a discount, right? So my thing is, everybody likes everybody, right?
Yeah.
But everybody wants it. Everybody wants the position to improve, but they don't want to get rid of anybody because they're familiar with them.
Well, they want the defense to be better,
but they don't want to get rid of anybody. You don't want to do anything that actually makes it better. And then you don't want to do the right thing long and short term, which is trade players for more value than a compensatory pick is going to give you next year.
Right.
So for me, man, it's like, yeah, Doug Peterson said the pass rush needs to be better. Maybe he means improvement. Maybe he needs the guys that are already there. Maybe he needs those people to step up and play better. But when we're talking about the draft itself, see, I'm not a firm believer in drafting a slot corner with the first pick, even though they play 70% of the time. There's a 30% chance that he won't be on the field if the team formation somewhere else or goes heavy, he's off. So you use your first round pick on a dude that's standing on the sideline.
Right.
You know, when Derrick Henry running up and down the field, you know what I'm saying? You're not using that third safety at all. So my thing is I don't believe in being that specific. I don't think you've arrived to the point where you can be that specific and draft a slot corner. But even if they draft an edge rusher, he ain't starting. If they take Nolan Smith at 24, he ain't starting this year. Let's just go in there and beat somebody out. But if he beats out Josh, that means you should have traded Josh anyway. And then if he beats out Trayvon, what they're telling you about your own pick last year.
Yeah, you got a problem. Yeah.
Right. So that's why, and I'm glad I can explain this on here. But when you do this for a living and you try to make the team better, but you do it based on what you heard them say, fans will get angry at you because now that they've had some success, fans will agree. They'll agree with the guy that they call a clown and beg me to put a clown emoji on my Twitter, and I wouldn't do it because that ain't how I roll. So they thought Balky was a clown, but because of Trevor may have masked some things. He may have masked some stuff about this team because he was so good. And Doug Peterson's play calling down the stretch, they may have if they lose that game to Tennessee, ain't nobody mad at me when I say I want to trade Josh Allen. Right. It just comes down to one play because they beat Josh Dobbs in Tennessee, and I was in DC watching the game, and Josh was, and they always say, why do you drop your defensive ends in coverage? Well, there he was back there in coverage, and somebody forced the fumble. He scooped it up and ran for a touchdown, and now everybody doesn't want to get rid of him, man. But I ask people all the time, watch the game. Where's 41? Is he that dude that Bosa type, the guy you just have to have on your team? And so why are you
screaming off the edge on third down, every third down? No, you're not doing that. So okay, I'm gonna tell you why I met with this whole thing with. I don't want them to draft no more defensive players in the first 3 rounds because I don't think they're getting it right. This is my opinion. I would much rather throw all my resources at my offense, knowing damn well I got a guy that's going to be getting paid, and I want most of the good players to be on the rookie contracts on offense as Trevor continues to elevate. Now, this is my thought process because I feel like if Trayvon Walker's who he's supposed to be, if Chad Move is going to be who he's supposed to be, if Andre Cisco's supposed to be who he's supposed to be, Devin Lloyd's got to be who he's supposed to be. Okay, man. At that point, how many more resources are you going to keep throwing at the defense and throwing at the defense and throwing at the defense? Because I don't want to get into a situation where you're having to re-sign and overpay somebody like Zay Jones next year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be able to say, okay, I drafted a legit, real good tight end that can be a top 10 tight end that can do what you do, Zay. I don't really need you. Ingram, you can kind of walk to. I don't really need you. But if you keep throwing all these resources at the defense, then you get into a situation with, damn, do I really want to go in the free agent market, go grab another wide receiver? Or do I got to give Zay Jones more money now? Oh, damn, Christian Kirk coming up in 2 years. Do I got to extend him? Do I got to get him more money? You already going to have, if really had the type of year that we think he's going to have, you got to give up a second rounder for him. So that second rounder next year is gone. All right. And you're going to have to pay him. So now you're going to have Trevor on the big deal. You're going to have Ridley on the big deal. Probably going to have to turn around. What you going to do with Walker Little? You know what I'm saying? I mean, Cam Roberts going to probably have to go. So now you're going to be younger on offense, like on your offensive line, because Cam's going to be gone. What you going to do with Walker Little now? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just kind of like, you can't keep throwing all these at some point you got to say, hey, man, y'all need to be good on defense. Okay. I can't keep doing that. So that, like, am I wrong for that train of thought? Because I'm much more than like, give me the guard, give me the tight end, or give me a wide receiver. First 3 rounds. Like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you're not necessarily wrong, but it's a little off. And I'm gonna tell you why it's a little off, because there are 2 ways to add players and to procure talent. There's drafting and there's free agency. So last year they went crazy in free agency with $175 million in guaranteed contracts. That money has to go in escrow right away, right? And they drafted a center. So over the last 2 years, they drafted a center, they drafted a tackle, they re-signed a tackle, they signed a guard, they drafted a running back in the first round, they traded for Calvin Ridley, they signed Zay Jones, they signed Christian Kirk, they signed Evan Ingram. So you can tell me all day that you want to add more players on offense, but where are they going to play at? That's the one thing. So that's a little bit of an issue. Now, when you do defense, it's the same thing over the last, well, I'd look at it as the last 2 years, but over the last year, it's not just about who they added. It's about what they added and how much they paid for it. As of right now, Foley Fadakazi is a bust.
Yeah.
As of right now. Now, he had some lower body injuries during training camp last year, but as of right now, he's a bust. Trayvon ain't no bust. Trayvon a good football player. I think Trayvon's best football going to happen in the next 2 years. And because I understand what Georgia was doing, and I understand what they're asking him to do here. He got better when they started putting his hand on the ground.
Right.
Because then that didn't give the left tackle. They were saying, I think they thought he needed a running start. No, because now the other dude knows he's coming. And he's very limited in his ability to disengage. He plays with long arms and power right now. So you put him hand on the ground, he started playing well, and then late in the year he had that high ankle sprain. That's what messed him up. He was right there getting a half a sack when he got bent when somebody fell on him. So the thing is you put him closer to the lineman, and then that initial burst and get off and then bang, that initial punch was something else to deal with. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. You cannot have too many good pass rushers, and you can't have too many good DBs, right? The thing is, though, is how much can you allocate funds and players to those 2 positions? Like, they got Darius Williams last year. He don't play inside very well. I know he's this big, but it took him 9 games to realize he needed to be outside. And
so he pitch and holds your defense, because he's supposed to bring versatility to the defense, but he doesn't.
He never played inside, and when he did, he didn't do it. They looked at his competitiveness and his athleticism. He could dunk a basketball backwards, but at that short. And they just assumed that he could play inside. There's more to it than just the body type when it comes to that. There's a mentality. So they moved him outside, and now they need a slot corner. Well, do you take Brian Branch, who's really a hybrid defensive back who can't run, like he doesn't run like the wind? So if he eventually slides outside the corner, he might be a little bit of a liability in space like that. So he's better off close to the line. Or do you draft Deonte Banks, who will play that slot, but then the second you need him, he's outside. And he's a long-term better fit, I believe, overall for your defense. They just have to get more multiple and more versatility out of their players. You just can't have these guys on your team to just do one thing.
Yeah.
And Mike Caldwell, you got to figure it out. You know, You can't run Tampa's defense if Devin Lloyd is not Levante David. You can't do it.
Right. Yeah.
If Foley Falukazi ain't Vita Vea, you ain't running the same thing. It's just the bottom line is you just can't do it, right? So
Right.
they have to figure out, which I heard they're going to more 4-man fronts. That might just be a rumor, but I did hear they're going to play more 4-man fronts this year. And like I said, man, sometimes it's coaching. I'm going to give a mulligan to them for last year because both of those coordinators, including the head coach and the coordinator, this is their first year. And this team was broken. This team was broken mentally and psychologically. They were broken, man, coming in. So maybe they didn't install everything. So maybe that's why they wanted to get everybody back together, bring it all back. Now we got them at this point. So we're not starting below ground zero. We're not starting a basement this year. We're starting from a place where everybody has confidence. They know what we're capable of. And there were times now I will give the defense credit because when the Jaguars were down 27-0 to the Chargers, Doug Peterson told them, we got to score every time. Not only did they score every time they got the ball, the Chargers never scored a touchdown. If the Chargers kick one field goal more or just take one of those field goals that they did kick, they kicked two, and one of those things is a touchdown, that game is, you can't catch them.
Right.
They held them. And then they kept Kansas City at bay, in the divisional. So they were improving and were getting better. We're just going to have to see.
Yeah, it's tough because the NFL, you're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? It's always a little closer than you're a little closer to that number one draft pick and a little bit closer to being 8-8 than you are to get into the Super Bowl and trying to see if they can take that next step to get to Super Bowl level. Like, can you get better than Buffalo? Can you get better than Cincinnati? Can you get better than the Chiefs? That's a big ass step you got to take next year. We'll see. I mean, I got to give Balky some credit because I think you hit on Cisco, and I think you hit on the cornerback. And
did he do that, or were those Urban picks? Because Urban depended a lot. Urban depended a lot on his coaches. Like Walker Little, there was a connection with Charlie Strong, right? They let that other kid go, that defensive tackle that they got from USC, and he went to Cincinnati and started making plays. So they screwed up when they let him go, the kid that they took in the 4th round. They wasn't good enough to cut a 4th round pick after 1 year. But Walker Little, Andre Cisco was recruited by the whole staff at Ohio State when he came out, and he chose to go to Rutgers. When you go right all the way through it, all of those guys, Tyson Campbell was recruited to Ohio State. All of them, everybody, they knew them from high school. And when you're talking about coming off of that COVID year, that was, remember they had an abbreviated combine and all that stuff. So my thing is that year, they actually got better information the way Pete Carroll did when he picked Richard Sherman.
Right. He knew him. Yeah.
He knew him. Yeah, he knew him from, he recruited him. And Harbaugh played the kid at wide receiver his first 2 years at Stanford. And he didn't go to USC. And Pete Carroll said, I was always going to play you at corner. So he told him, go get him. So he knew those people. Jimmy Johnson, when he took over years ago, knew all the high school guys. He knew who was good. He knew what they were cut from. So I think they did a real good job in the draft because there was a limited amount of information. And because there was a limited amount of information, they knew all of these kids and knew what their pedigree was. So that really helped them. So I don't know if Balky did all of that.
I'm giving him the credit because I don't want to be.
No, and you should. Because he kind of led Urban. Urban wanted to trade the house and move up and take the tight end from Florida. Balky said, "No, you can't do it." So he kind of like reined him in, like, "No, you can't do that. You're gonna crush the team." So they wouldn't have had that 1st round pick to take Trayvon last year. They wouldn't have, because it's like they had to give up so much stuff to move up.
He wanted Tony.
No, he wanted Tony, but he actually said that he asked Balky, "What I got to do to get Pitts? How can I draft Trevor and get Pitts?"
Pitts, yeah.
And Balky told him basically, "You can't." Not without having no draft picks, it's gonna be impossible. You know what I'm saying? Like, you trade a 2nd round pick, you'd have to give up the next 2 1st round picks to move up from the 1st pick in the 2nd round all the way up to like the 4th spot. Oh, it would have cost you everything. That'd have been like chasing another quarterback.
That'd be like Ricky Williams, that Ricky Williams draft.
Right. So, he told him basically it's not going to happen. You can't do it.
Right.
So the thing is it just all depends on. Matter of fact, you just made a good point. You brought up Kadarius Toney. You see the difference, and nothing wrong with Brian Daboll. Brian
Yeah.
Daboll took the Giants to the playoffs and got Daniel Jones paid, and they look like a team on the rise because they just look like they understand what it is, right?
Right.
Tony wasn't a fit.
Right.
He goes to Kansas City, catch a touchdown, got a big gold smile on his face on the sideline in the Super Bowl. So it's not about right and wrong per se. It's about right fit, wrong fit, understanding. CJ Henderson was playing better in Carolina than he did here. He wasn't a fit for Jacksonville.
Yeah.
He just wasn't.
Yeah,
So especially when the new people came in, Urban had him riding a bicycle and embarrassed the hell out of him in practice. So that's like the last thing you want to do with a dude like that. So, it is what it is, man. That's why guys play better in other places than they play in the first place. Even if the first place was a real good situation, sometimes it's better just to go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll wrap on this right here. Who you think is going to be the first? Who you think Carolina's going to take?
I think they're going to take Bryce Young.
That's so wild to me. That's.
I think they're going to take Bryce Young. I think people thought they were taking CJ Stroud because of him and the quarterback coach and everybody dapping each other up and this, that, and the third. I just think Bryce Young does everything right, and I think CJ Stroud's a great kid. I just think that when you're picking first, you don't have to settle for anything. When you're picking first, you don't have to be tolerant of anything. You can literally go looking for and grab exactly what you want. And I think Bryce, for that gig, he appears to be someone that you might want to represent your club over other people. I mean,
right.
That boy with Levis out here eating bananas, rotten bananas through the peel and
putting mayonnaise
in his coffee.
It's weird.
All that quirky stuff is cool, but that's what you deal with when a dude fall to you. You don't go looking for that. Like, I'm going to look for me a quarterback to eat a rotten banana without peeling. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like with Bryce, it's clean. You haven't heard any discussions about him. And I think a lot of the stuff you heard about CJ Stroud is BS, by the way. But he's clean. There's, Alabama, the way he walks and the way he carries himself, the type of leader he is. He fought like hell to win the Georgia game. If them dudes catch the ball, Alabama wins that national championship game.
Well, that dude don't get hurt. If Jameson Williamson don't get hurt in that game.
Then there was a pass that was dropped, and then the tight end got caught from behind by Keely Ringo when he looked like he was jogging.
Right.
And there was a couple of other drops. If Alabama at the beginning of the fourth quarter scores one touchdown, that game is over.
Yeah. So, okay. Oh, damn. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
This last one. Anthony Richardson, man.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating because I think in 5-6 years he's gonna be a tight end. But what do you think?
I don't think so. I think he's gonna be a quarterback or he's gonna be out the league because I don't think everybody that's built like that can play tight end. I know we do that all the time.
I know but it's funny to do it though.
Yeah, but the reason why I run away from that is because of the same reason I got mad at Bill Polian when he came and talked about Lamar Jackson.
Right.
It's because there are some people that say that and it means something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part of it that I don't really care for. Now, in terms of Richardson, I can tell you this, when he was playing on national TV last year against Georgia and on national TV against FSU, there were a bunch of NFL people that I followed that were tweeting out that ain't no quarterback. So the biggest thing is for him is going to be where he goes, the type of development that he gets into, and is going to be how quickly or how long can he hold the confidence of the guys around him. What type of player is he? Like, I guarantee if you ask the 49ers players anonymously, they don't want Trey Lance to be their quarterback. They want that other kid to be there because they saw the ball come out of his hand real fast. Just like the players for the Jets had Mike White shirts on.
Yeah, they was done.
White, we trust. And I'm sitting there. I asked somebody. I think I did a podcast with the guy from Locked On Jets, my man John Butchko. I said, Butchko, were they wearing the shirts like, and the other kid was right there? He said, yeah. I'm like, man, that's some nasty work right there, Jack. That is some. That's almost like Will Smith's daughter begging for Tupac to come back, and he was dead before she was born. That's like, I'm just sitting, and your daddy's sitting right there. I'm like, that's some nasty work, Jack. The whole team, and then they flashing the shirts like, hey man, and Mike White we trust. And I'm sitting there looking at this kid just get off the bus. I'm like, man, why y'all do that, man, like that, man? That's worse than anything I ever seen in the barbershop. Because if I was that kid, I'd have whooped somebody's ass. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'd have found the kicker or the long somebody who had, or the punter that had that shirt on, and I'd have been like Ike Clanton in Lonesome Dove.
Yeah.
After he got punked by the Earps, he turned around and he slapped the bartender. He said, I ain't taking that shit from no bartender. I would have found the smallest dude on that team and beat his ass in front of everybody for having that shirt on. That's some dirty work right there, man. But you know what happened? He lost them.
Yeah.
And there wasn't nothing Robert Saleh could do or say to get it back. And that's the thing that I hope does not happen to Anthony Richardson. Like, you get these veterans, he goes to a team and you got some dude, let's just say he went to Tennessee, and you got a dude like Kevin Byard, and you got Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons. You got these dudes that really, man, look, I'm trying to win. I'm all pro. You know, don't put him in until he's ready. But if he gets in there and then see, players don't have to be patient.
Right. But they don't have time to be patient because their career's almost over.
Coaches don't. Now, Vrabel has enough cachet to be patient. But you think Derrick Henry want a dude in there that can't hit the side of, you know? So I'm rooting for Richardson,
right?
Because once, you know, I'm a Florida State supporter, but once guys leave college, I don't root against them when they get to the pros because they're just human beings. I know too many people. My godson plays the linebacker for the Gators.
Right.
I'm pulling for him every time. So my thing is, because I know Denny Thompson, who has coached that kid for a long time, and because I trust Brian Johnson, and they say Brian Johnson said that he was the best quarterback he's ever been around, and Brian is now the new offense coordinator for the Eagles, who used to be at Florida. I want him to do good, and if you ever heard Anthony Richardson talk, you got to root for him.
Yeah, he's a good kid. Yeah,
he's a good kid. I tell you what, if it does click, watch out. That's all I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's true.
If it clicks, watch out.
What you think the perfect situation for him would be? Would it be like Minnesota or like
where he doesn't have
Detroit?
To play?
Yeah,
where he doesn't have to play. Detroit is a good one. Detroit is a real good one where he doesn't have to play right away. And then there's a certain culture, because we talk about Dan Campbell and the biting kneecaps and all that, but I'm telling you,
they fight, man.
They have built something, and they go out and that's like, if you had to ask people what team don't you want to meet behind the building in a bar, and it's probably Detroit. They got a whole roster full of dudes just like that. And believe it or not, Jacksonville got some beasts on that team now,
right? As
far as, you know, that is concerned. But he has to go somewhere like that where he's not rushed. Seattle would be perfect, in my opinion, because he could sit behind that kid for 2 years, Geno. And there's nobody better for you to learn from than somebody who failed and people who gave up on him. And then late in his career, he got almost $100 million because of the way he played and the patience. So I think that
Pete has done a good job with quarterbacks. Even though he's a defensive guy, he's had almost 4 or 5 guys there.
Yeah, and it seemed like they all could play.
And they all been able to produce and play on the team. So I think Seattle's probably, you know, I actually like Seattle probably more than I like Minnesota, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I prefer him go somewhere where the coach is not in any danger of getting fired, because if he goes somewhere and he's under development and the team is either desperate to win a Super Bowl right now, the way the 49ers were, and they threw Trey Lance in too early, and the kid hadn't played in almost 2 years, and or go to a situation where a coach might be on his way out the door. I don't think that those situations.
I feel that way about Vrabel. So I feel like Vrabel, even though I love Vrabel, I think he's a top coach. I think he got another year, maybe 2 years.
Well, they're not going to fire him. The only way Vrabel leaves is if Ryan Day gets a job and Vrabel takes the Ohio State job. I don't think they're going to fire him straight up, even though this is a new GM and that's not his dude. But I think Rand Carthon and everybody else appreciates if Vrabel gets fired, it won't be because the team makes successful, just because they feel like it's just not a good fit for the new staff. Because Vrabel can be Vrabel. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that's what I'm
But
saying. He can. I don't think he deal with losing very well. I think he's one of them guys
he
that kind
shouldn't.
of.
He
Yeah,
shouldn't. Anybody
yeah.
that deals with losing good, I don't want him
I
around.
don't
You
want to. Yeah,
shouldn't.
so I
Nobody should
just
be.
they look they about to go into a rebuild, so I just can't see him stand around for that. But anyway, man, Wig, I really appreciate you coming through, man. Give me all the NFL talk, man. I hope everybody really, really enjoyed, man. You got any parting words?
No, man, just check me out on Locked On Jaguars on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from an audio perspective. We'll be there every single day. It's your team every day. And hit me up at Shop Talking Wig on Twitter. Don't come bringing this foolishness to Instagram. That's a whole something else. You know, I don't even market sports too much on Instagram. I pretty much market my other business. But hit me up on Twitter. Don't get upset if I get mad at you one day and block you, because I do that kind of stuff every now and then. I blocked Sam. I blocked Sam for 2 years and he blocked me. I was supposed to whoop Sam. Yeah, people don't realize his partner came and told me, man, give him some slack, man. Don't whoop him. Then he told me, Sam, kind of big now. So I said, okay. I opened my drawer where I keep all my tools, and I said, you see what's in there? I got something for big people too. So but Sam, one of my closest friends, and people don't realize this. We might go back and forth on Twitter, but 9 times out of 10, we're talking in between those tweets, and people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So it's all good. People probably read those tweets and think we don't like each other, but we are fast friends. So
yeah, people do think that. I get a lot of crazy DM. I'm like, nah, just got me haircut by Wig on Friday.
Yeah, that's my boy, man. That's my boy. If I ain't poking at you, that means I don't care nothing about you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I appreciate it though, man. Thank you for having me on. Y'all do a good job.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, brother.
Yep.